Hello, and welcome back to my channel, Music School Hustle, where we talk about all the latest tips and tricks for developing your music studio business. And today we're going to be talking about payment policy and how to keep payments coming from your students so you don't have to be shaking anybody down for payment, and that you have a clear, regular income coming through to you as a teacher. Very important, because obviously, although we all enjoy what we're doing, we want to make sure we're getting paid for it. We've got bills ourselves, and particularly through times like the summer, maybe we can have a separate discussion on that. Sometimes it can be really hard as a teacher to know when that income is coming in. It's kind of unpredictable. So let's talk about first a payment policy. What is a payment policy? So this is a clearly laid out set of rules for when you expect to have payment, like when is acceptable to have payment before you give up a lesson time, how payment is going to be received, whether by cash, check, PayPal, or credit card, and what the intervals are going to be for the payment. So I'll tell you a little story. Before I had a payment policy, when I was just starting out as a teacher, and at that point I was traveling to people's homes, I went and drove to a student's house, and I got a text from them 15 minutes before their lesson that they were at their lake house and they wouldn't be having piano lessons. Well, I left kind of fuming because it was obviously kind of like not very respectful of my time, but I had put myself, to be totally fair, in that position where I had treated this like it was a hobby and not like a business. So even though you might be worried about being thought of as too harsh or whatever, it's really, you've got to think about being respectful of yourself too. I mean, obviously there are certain situations where you need to be a little bit more flexible, but you really have to set that plan out in place and make it clear to people that it is not okay to waste your time and for them not to pay you for a lesson. So what I would suggest doing is bringing the payment policy to the first lesson to the trial. And typically what I do now is I actually charge for my trial lessons too as a deposit, because I don't like the idea of not making the trials free. But I had an issue for a little while of people making trial times and then not showing up for trials. And that becomes a problem because I don't have time then to put people in for makeup lessons, or I've given that time away to somebody and another potential person can't come in. So I actually will say to them now, okay, yeah, this looks like this time's open. Here's a PayPal invoice. Once the PayPal invoice is taken care of, then we'll book in your time into the calendar for that trial lesson. And this trial fee will be subtracted from your next lesson, or it will be refunded if you aren't happy with the trial. So that's usually the statement that I give right off the bat to kind of set some clear boundaries with money. So, and the next thing is, in my lessons payment policy, it states rules about cancellation. So, you must give 24 hours before you cancel, except for in the cases of like family related illness or emergency, because things happen. I get it. I have 2 young kids myself, so I understand, but we just want to make sure that we're not canceling for things like, oh, I'm on vacation and I forgot about my piano lesson. You want to set those clear rules in place, and you want to do it right from the beginning so that if they come back and say, well, come on, we're on vacation. Well, no, you signed a payment policy in the beginning. Here, go back and check it out. And sometimes if someone's really a good student and they usually are where they're supposed to be, I'll say, okay, typically we have 24 hours notice for this, but, I'll make an exception for this time. But going forward, you need to make sure you give me 24 hours notice, because it prevents you from bringing other students in. And sometimes you show up at a location early or whatever. And there are definitely things that we cannot prevent. I've had situations where people were supposed to pay me for the month at that lesson, and then they didn't show up to that lesson, and then they're like, they ghost me, okay? So things like that definitely happen, but we want to try to limit that as much as possible, because what it is it's stealing your time and your energy. So, and what I've tried to think about it is, okay, if this person's not going to pay me on time, it's probably not someone I'm going to want to continue working with anyway. And sometimes that helps take the, take the anger off a little bit, but basically having that clear payment policy in place is going to be really, really important. And what I would suggest doing, and what I typically do, is a flat monthly rate to reserve the time. And I say, this is like rent, so you're holding a time. There's only so many hours in the day that I can help everybody. So, for half an hour every week, it's going to be $128 a month. And if you need to cancel, you can make up at any point when there's a cancellation, as long as you give 24 hours notice. I also let them know what all the holidays are that I won't be teaching, like Christmas, Easter. I don't like to teach on Mother's Day, so things like that I let them know ahead of time. Now, if I was to go on vacation or something like that, I typically just take that unpaid vacation and just say, okay, I'm going to lower your payment for this month, because I don't think I can make up 2 weeks worth of lessons. Just conceivably, it's not going to work. But again, I want to have reliable income. And when I really figured out that this was something that I wanted to do, was back in a couple of years ago, back in 2016, and I was tracking through, for my taxes, what I was going to be, what I had earned the previous year, and I was shocked to find it wasn't nearly as much as I expected, given the amount of hours that I was working and putting in and how focused I had been on the business. And I found out I lost about 40% of my income because people were canceling lessons and not making up their time. And a lot of people were also leaving lessons because they weren't noticing the progress, because they weren't keeping a weekly commitment. So having that payment policy in place, and ideally having a flat structure, a payment of some kind, I think is best. And then I would really encourage you to check in with your students regularly as well and see how they're enjoying the lessons, because then you'll get a little bit of information. Encourage them to be honest, because you'll get a little bit of information about whether they want to continue and if there's something that you could be doing to prevent them, from wanting to leave, because there might be something that's on their mind that they're not specifically conveying to you. Like they might not like their time, or they aren't happy with the way the lessons are structured. But many people will hold back and not voice these things, and then when invoice time comes around, they decide to take a break, leaving that spot open. So if you have a little bit of knowledge, even if they say, I think next month we're going to take a break, if you give yourself 2 weeks before that invoice date, you have 2 weeks to find somebody else to fit that time. So again, having that clear payment policy, having a flat rate, checking in with your students to make sure that you know what's going on with them, that you're really giving the best for the lessons, and you're knowing maybe ahead of time if they want to leave. All those things are good. Just really covering your butt, so to speak, and making sure that nothing is going to come back and bite you later is super, super important. And then the last thing that I would say as a general message is try not to get offended if something happens with the payment. It's really hard not to, because I think a lot of people think it's not a big deal to just cancel last minute on people and things like that. But ultimately, think about what you're trying to get out of this. You want a customer who's going to stick around, or at least you want to, do you want to leave feeling unhappy? No. If you've done all you can to try to prevent these things from happening, then just try to move on and realize that part of this, as your business gets bigger, part of this is kind of par for the course. So just kind of let it go and realize there'll be someone else who will be more respectful of your time, and that's probably the person that you're going to want to work with anyway. So, all right, I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you back again. I'm going to try to post a video every day if I can for a little while to kind of kick this off and spread the word. And if you have any suggestions for what you would like as your next video, please leave it in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, please click to subscribe. Okay, thanks so much. Bye.